Hello. For almost 30 years, I work with the retouching digital medias and specifically with Photoshop. And during processing thousands portraits, I developed my own workflow, which is maybe not unique. A lot of photographers will use this one, but it is optimized to be sure I produce very painterly nice effect of retouching portraits with a minimum time spent. So it's efficiency and quality. And again, this has come with many years of the developing, trial, and discovering new ways to do. And this is what I want to share with you in this video. And we'll begin to work inside our bridge, which is have some shots from what I did recently photo shoot. Right here, you can go ahead through bit different images, and usually I put it start ratings, which one I like or don't like. And I think right now after selecting one, we ready open inside the camera raw. Before opening in camera raw, I just want to point you to the settings. This is shot on a Canon R5 camera, which is kind of a bit large size image. That is good because we can crop or do a lot of work with pixels. But most important, look right here, I was shot on f13 and 1/125th shutter speed. The shutter speed is a standard if you work with a studio lighting. However, my f-stop is quite a bit large, so it's smaller hole opening and it's a more sharper image. Many times when people do classic portraits, they want to wider open, so you have a more blur effect. In my practice, because I work with retouching, it's much easier in Photoshop to add blur than sharpen edge. So I can easy going in one way and harder to go another ways. And beside, if you want to use a portrait style, like painterly older portrait, if you notice on painting, they did not have any depth of field there because it wasn't introduced later in some painting maybe, but what we're going with the style, it won't work for us. So in reason for this, in many other ones, I'm using quite a bit large f-stop. Okay, after this, let's go ahead, double tap click on our image to open inside the Photoshop. Okay, notice it does not open straight in Photoshop because it does with the camera raw format, and with Canon R5 it is CR3. Some other ones will have different extensions for the file, but they will be unique to the specific manufacturing of the cameras. Okay, the reason is why it's open camera raw, because raw image when you shoot in a camera have it much more information, wider dynamic range, more colors, and when we start processing inside the Photoshop, we actually tone down some of those information. And camera raw will help us to work on this. Before we begin, I want to point to this. If we click on the bottom information link, you'll notice I work in Adobe RGB color space. Some of you maybe prefer work as RGB or other ones, color, which is fine, whatever you prefer. I'm just my camera, my monitor, everything set with the specific color range, color palette, we can say. It's helped me to be sure everything is consistent. Same like my color calibration tools, they work in the same color space. Okay, also depth, I'm working with 16-bit. Some of you maybe prefer 8-bit. 16-bit provide for us more colors, billions of the colors, and provide better gradient without any of the clipping and fringing and other elements. Okay, so let's go ahead. This is how we can set. We'll click OK. Now inside the image, what we're going to do, we're going to work with highlights. So by default, your highlights set up, and problem is with sometimes we may have it lost information over brighten some elements. Like in the eyes right here, you can see absolutely white. How I said before, camera raw provide for us much more information. If we don't see on a screen, it still be there. With adjusting this, we can bring those values up. Like for example, take highlights, take them slightly down, and you can see we restore some information in those highlights areas, because that information still be captured by camera sensor, but it's not yet displayed on our screen because screen have it much less dynamic range. Now we pop up a little bit shadows. Don't go crazy, because if we get very high shadows will introduce a lot of digital noise inside our image. So usually I introduce just a little bit up. Okay, this is take highlights down and shadow increase will reduce our levels of luminosity. And luminosity, it is a brightness and shadows, a difference between this, which is in two-dimensional photography creating the shapes. And shapes is important for us to representing, because otherwise in two-dimensional world we don't have a parallax effect or 3D effect, so we don't know really how object is shaped. We will go to restore some of this in a second, specifically on a face. Be sure we have a good depth and dimensions for this. Okay, let's go a little bit down. So next, let's go down, scroll, and we'll go to our sharpness. I usually put sharpness somewhere between 60 and 70, and the reason is that specific on a camera, because Canon R5 have it in camera anti-aliasing. It soften edge a little bit, and it's done for different reasons, mostly technical reasons, but I want to restore original sharpening, and that's the reason why I bring about this range. Somewhere, how I said before, 60 70, it's a very nice restoration element. Not every camera need this. Some of the camera does not have it, bypass this type of the anti-aliasing in a camera, so just be sure you check with manufacturer if your camera have or doesn't. Next, we'll go down below, and right here in a color mix luminosity, you can see we have our sliders that we can affect luminosity level based on the color. Because, how I said before, we flatten a little bit face, I'm going to use it orange and maybe red just to bring back. And notice what's happening when I bring up. It is highlight face, but right here in the eye, you remember it was over shot. Look, it's keep it same luminosity, and this is what we wanted. We want to restore lighting and elements where was a little bit flattened but wasn't overexposed, but in the eyes, like those highlights, there was overexposed. In this case, they don't affect. They will affect probably by the green channel if we affect this one, but we won't use this. You also can try add yellow, but in this currently photo it does not necessarily work properly. So let's go ahead, scroll down, and next options, I almost always enable it is in optic, remove chromatic abbreviation, and use it camera profile. And the reason for this, that doesn't matter how good lens is on your camera, they will still provide some of this chromatic abbreviation or color shifting on the edges. It's due to properties of the glass lens, and when light passing through, splitting on the waves. So we won't go into very technical details, but usually I always enable the chromatic abbreviation removing, and use it profile correction. This is another problem with the lenses, because distortions going from edges, and by disabling you can see it how it's changed. Most of the time I will enable this use profile correction, with exception if I'm purposely want to distort. For example, if I using fish eye lens, come closer and I want something look bigger, smaller, then purposely I will disable this profile correction, so I want distortion affecting my image how I produce. So this is about all on this review. Let's go ahead, click open, and now we'll be inside Adobe Photoshop. Okay, at this point, the first step, what we want to do, it is actually properly framing, and we'll do this by going to crop tool, and you notice right here we have options to readjust positioning, and you can play as you want it. It does have some golden rules on this, but general I'm keeping 2/3. So like for example, face right here I think a little bit too high, we need increase, so I want to go a little bit up, maybe up to chin, to keep it properly balanced. So you can specify which area, but I found for me 2/3 work very good when I am adjusting. If I'm going to increase up, I want to fill up this space, and Photoshop have a very nice tool for this. Be sure on the top it says enable content aware, and usually I disable delete cropped pixels this time, because in a case if I want to go back and extend or restore some information, I can do this and it's still preserved for me. So when we're done this, Just go ahead, press enter. It will take a little bit time, depend on how much area you added, because Photoshop analyzes all image and will extend the canvas with a properly fill up. And you can see right here, it does, even on a background, have this line properly going diagonal. Okay, so now our next step, we want to retouch. For this, we're going to create, and let's go call this background. By the way, as we extend, you'll notice it's converted from our locked background to normal image. If you want to restore back this way, you can go to layer and going to click on a new background from layer, and in this case it will just convert to your original background layer if you need it. So let's go ahead, click and create new layer, and we'll call this retouching. In this layer, I want to fix some elements that maybe I don't want present in my image. And we'll start with the face. So I'm going to use a spot healing tool. The other tool, healing brush tool, is very powerful. It's almost like localize frequency separation tool, but it does require some sampling. With this one will work just great. And usually what I retouch is just small imperfection in a skin, or maybe some in a scenery, that help us remove some of those unwanted attention to them. I would like to keep some of this imperfection. This is natural face, and it's what make look kind of realistic, but we'll adjust this. There, okay, when we're done with face, let's go look next. Right here we have it our background, and you'll notice we have her hand resting on a chair, but we have some white cloth there. So let's go ahead and remove this cloth from our scenery, and we can do this by selecting patch tool, go around like this, and we can have different areas up and down. Notice when I try to move, it says it's area empty, because when we're using the spot healing, it says sampling current and below, so it will sample. When we're using patch tool, it does not have this option, so it's meaning we need to select properly. We can go back to background tool, click on this lock to unlock it, and then we can go and adjust. But notice what's happened right now. When we create this, it's add blurry. Many times I will use the patch tool, it's if it's fixed properly. Let me Control Z to undo this. Okay. Example, if I do in this corner, if I don't want this area, I can select and move it, and it will be look properly. So if I try to do this on a piece of cloth here, you'll see it's create blur because Photoshop AI not yet advanced to replace this element. It's okay. Sometimes notice we have it white. We can use it clone tool or other things, but how I said before, I want to optimize. So I will ignore this, and we can even leave it as a detail, and we'll add a little bit more dodge and burn or dim down coloring and attention. One thing keep in mind that when we look on our images, our eyes first draw to the brighter spot, then if it's colored, going to the red spot, and so on. And when we all analyze all those pixels, we eventually start stopping on the small details. It's how attention works. And we utilize this in our image to create better. Okay, we're done our retouching for now. Next step, what I want to do, it is smoothing skin. I don't want to have a total plasticky look. However, we can do this. I just want to make it look more paint-like. For this, we press Ctrl-Shift-Alt-E, Command Option Alt-E, to take all visible layers and combine them in brand new. And we're going to call it smoothing, okay? For this, we're going to use it filter, noise, dust and scratches, and we're going to set some element. Notice a radius, how much we want set. Usually I'm looking so I can recognize details, but skin it looks smooth. About 14 for this will be work. The resolution will be changed depending do you have a big portrait or a small portrait. Okay, and in this case we have a small kind of portrait pixels, and that resolution will work. Okay, let's look right here. We can see we have nice smoothing. We still have details, but we don't see pores of the skin, and that's what we're going after. So now we hold down Alt or Option and click on a mask. It's will creating mask for our channel in a black color. It's meaning no effect will visible. Next, what we need to do, take our brush. Be sure our brush sets soft round element. Okay, and we want to be sure our opacity as low as can, probably about 10 will work for this. Next, we want to be sure it is white color. Our mask is selected, and we can start painting in some of the softness. The softness I'm applying usually just on a skin, or maybe on some areas background if I need smoothness. Notice what it's happened. It is remove some of this grain from the skin. By the way, as I mentioned, grain you can also remove where you have a digital noise from background, same way. Okay, I'm avoiding eyes, hair, lips, anywhere where is actually I want to keep a texture for this, because some of this element we want to keep it. Notice it's dimmed down some of this skins in perfection, and we want to do the same on the hands because we want them to look similar way. Okay, let's go right here. We'll paint a little bit on it. We don't want overdo because we won't have it this skin wrinkles, we won't have it skin textures. We just need it slightly decreasing. Okay, let's go come closer, and we can see before and after. When we do this way, you definitely can see different. However, you can see how smoothness and softness add to our skin. Just a little bit to reduce down. Okay, our next step, I like to clean up a little bit on the hair to make hair look better. So in this case, the same Control Shift Alt E, Command Option Alt E to take all visible layers, create new, and we'll call this hair. With a hair, we'll go to Filter, Stylize, Oil Painting, and in Oil Painting I will take Stylization and Cleanness to 10, higher percentage. We'll make light matching our light coming, and if you notice on our lights it's coming from top right, kind of from this angle. So that's where I'm matching my lights. We'll have a scale, maybe pop up to 0.1, Bristol 10, that should work. Actually, you know what, take Bristol down. 10. Okay, click OK, and right now if we look, we have it, our hair smooths. Sometimes it's too smooth, so I like to apply sharpness. Go on Filter, Sharp, Unsharp Mask, and with this case we can pop up a little bit sharpness up. It just add a little bit more definition to our hair. I don't want to apply this effect everywhere. For this, we'll hold Alt or Option and click on a mask, which same create a black mask and hide the effect. Now by using brush, same as before with white color, we can brush in hair where we want to be have this effect. Okay, if we look on our mask, you can see where we paintings we added to this hair areas. Okay, let's go ahead. We'll add a little bit more. In this case, we don't have that much hair, so it was very simple, but it does a little bit clean up our hair and makes it look nice. Okay, next I want to enhance a little bit eyes. And enhance eyes, for this we're going to use it curves. Okay, let's go call it eye. Okay, and we'll switch this to overlay mode. Right here, overlay mode, and we'll take and pop up just slightly up. What it does is will increase color, saturation, and will increase contrast on our eyes. So we don't want to apply everywhere. Same, we'll select mask and press Ctrl or Command I to inverse our mask to make it black and not visible everywhere. Now we can go back to the eyes with our white brush, what we done before, and just slightly brush in. You'll notice as we're doing here, our eyes color and sharpness, almost this element is increasing. It's make them a little bit more stand out. Okay, let's go out, look back, before and after. You can see it does affecting, just make them a little bit more pop out. The same curve, you actually can use it on a hair. If you have it like red hair or white, that will work also, add some little bit more effect to this. I don't want to touch the hair or lips or other things with this, just a little bit pop up on the eyes. Okay, so we done all the stuff with smoothness, everything. Some of these techniques like smoothness will actually flatten image even more because it's removing highlights. It's removing some of the specular lighting which create interesting effect. So right now I want to restore of those. This will be not my global, local dodge and burn. Local, I mean to the shape of the figure. For this we'll create new layer. Let's go call dodge and burn, and we're going to edit fill, and in the fill we'll fill with content 50% gray, normal mode, 100% opacity. Click OK. Next we'll switch this to the soft light. Soft light is contrast based blending mode, which 50% gray is invisible. Now by using brushes soft set, same like before white and black, we can introduce some shadows and highlights. So let's get closer and see what's happening. Right here, for example, I have my brush, and you can see as I am brushing in, I'm introducing shadows. If I switch this to the white, and you can use the X key, it's a little bit faster, which is split between foreground, background color, I can start introducing like highlight right here on the nose. For example, we lost a little bit highlights, maybe a little bit under eyes highlights. Let's go on the lips. The interesting things that our brain how work, we work by the shape. So if I introducing a little bit more on the, a little bit of highlights on the eyes, if I introduce shadow and highlights, that will create the shapes. If you're interested, I have different videos, a little bit more going in a depth, how the luminosity and other work, that may help you as a photographer to develop better your style and understanding how retouching work. Okay, but right here, I'm working just with the switching between white and black and creating painting over. You don't need to invent anything. If you want it, you can have like anatomy book and look there, but usually I'm just emphasize where I think lights should go, like in the dark areas, and add highlights in areas where I think we should have a little bit more lights in. So it's kind of painting tool. Let's zoom out and check, and right here before and after, and you can see how we change already shape, creating a little bit more painter look. Okay, so let's go ahead, we'll go and zoom a little bit more down right here where the hands, and we'll do same things. Currently it's white, so I want just increase some highlights, some elements around there. Okay, X, switch to the black. And by the way, if you use bracket key, this will make your brush going smaller or bigger. Very handy, so you don't need constantly jump and create it. You can see I add a little bit more shadows here. Let's go to this hand. This hand a little bit more lighten from the falling light, and we can just also adapt to this light by adding highlights to some areas. Highlights will make look bigger and closer. Shadows will make smaller and more far away. Okay, also right here it's semi-transparent. We can see some her legs. So I want kind of dim slightly this down. We'll come back to this when we start working on the environment. And my goal to dim down, it is draw attention with the lighting to specific element. Now this may be a little bit too dark, so I'm just go a little bit, add whites right there to soften. I think this look better. Don't worry if it does not work properly as you want it from first time. It is take practice, and I have quite a bit experience and trials how to make it look. Just to work every day, creating, retouching, and dodge and burn. It's very important techniques for the retoucher, and to create proper dimension and shapes inside the 2D portraits. So let's go ahead and create another layer, and this one will be the same, dodge and burn, but it will be global. And we'll go say fill up this 50% gray normal concrete opacity. Same as before, we switch this to our soft light. Same, we'll take a brush black, but in this case I want to actually work on environment. So like, remember what I says, we try to remove it, but look what we can do. We can also take and hide these inner shadows. So it still be some details there, but they're now hiding in the shadows, and we don't need to worry about where it will be. Same, we can create additional switch to the white, and we can create and add additional lighting going around. So we add a little bit lighting around. There you go. Okay, the same way you can create like light rays and other elements with this, which is help us to bring a little bit more details and specific element. And same, we can add a little bit more shadows, hide or dim down from elements that we don't want people jump with attention. They can still look afterwards, but it just does not go bright. So again, before and after, you can see how already we're switching attention when we look on an image to different areas. Okay, I know it's maybe already like in 25 minutes of doing this stuff. If you actually work on this and you do this every day for at least a few times, you'll notice how it will dramatically speed up afterwards. And usually this one, all it's done in a matter of few minutes, creating layers, retouch, retouch, retouch. And most important, when I do this, keep my mouth shut so I don't spend time on explaining to myself. And right now, definitely will kind of tell you what's going on, and let's slow down our process a little bit. Okay, so let's go ahead. So far we created retouching, all the stuff. We're almost actually done with this. In cases, I'll show you optional things, and that is applied when I'm using male like muscles, when I want to bring grunge or other things, or very kind of more HDR look to this, or maybe theme it, steampunk, something distressed. Then we can create additional layer. And we can do this again by Control Shift Alt E, Command Option Alt E, take all visible, create an all together. And this will be automated dodge and burn, or kind of detail enhancer, you can tell this. So on this new layer, we're going to image adjustment, and we're going to switch this to the black and white. And in black and white, we want enhance red and yellow, bring them up. It's mostly skin tone. Click OK. Next, we want to go to image adjustments, and we're going to shadow and highlights. If your shadow and highlights look just like this, click on this show more options. That will expand and showing options we needed. So what do we want to do? We want to take radius for the shadows, put it 10. Radius for highlights, put it 10. It's how many pixels will be going around. We'll take amounts for highlights and shadows, bring to 100%. And now when we have a tone, what do we want to do? We want to bring and create kind of little bit highlights and shadows. What's happening here? We will going to use this soft light, which is, you remember, the black get emphasized a little bit more, white bring brighter. So it's add like almost the contrast or curve to this, so we can add a little bit more definitions between all of these elements. And for us, most important will be those mid-tones that very hard sometimes. So we'll add more contrast to mid-tones to creating deeper difference between luminosity levels. So let's go ahead, click OK, and after it's applied, we'll go to switch soft light. Notice it's much darker, but with opacity we can control this and add as much as we wanted. And you can see right near here how much deeper shadows and other. So we'll just add a little bit to this picture, not that much, because mostly it's work very well when you have a specific scenario, but in this case, when we have it soft lighting, I just want to apply to this. Okay, so let's go ahead. We're almost done with this photo. Next, what I want to do is create new layer, and we'll call this grain. The reason is we kind of interesting because as a photographer, grain is not necessarily best things for you, because it's introduced all this noise. But when we're retouching, what's happened, we'll have at one level of grain here, and we did smooth on the skin, we did some other stuff, it will be almost no grain. So we want to be sure we have it uniform. If it's not uniform, some of those elements, the smoothing, they pop up as artificial, too smooth. So we want to do with this new layer, it is going to fill up. So we'll go to edit fill, same like before with 50% gray. Next we'll go to filter, noise, add noise, and let's introduce noise. Monochromatic uniform will work, and we'll have it about 5%, not that much. Click OK, and we'll switch the soft light. So let's go look very closer what's happened now, and you can see before and after. It just introduced slightly noise, but it is enough to blend all of our retouching together, so it's look very similar. Okay, last step what we want to do is add some color toning, and that is a very subjective. It's what you like to do. So I will showing how I do it, and I'm adding level new layer, adjustment layer called selective colors. So we'll do with this, go on to black and take black slightly up. I don't like absolutely black, so I will put it maybe around -2. So we're going to also adjust some coloring, because we want to have it kind of more cold and warm what we're going to do, because you maybe heard about complementary palettes, and usually they're working like if you have it cold, you want to have it warm, or so different adjustments. For this one, darker, usually I want to have it cold, and for this we're going inside yellow, and we can add a little bit of the blue, just touch of the green, because it will add a kind of cyanish look, and we can move a little bit more in cyan. Sometimes I actually going all the way warm, it just depends, but in this case we'll just go just a little bit darker. Next we're going with the neutral colors, and here I'm going opposite, I want introduced warmer. So I'm going just a little bit yellow, a little bit red, and again a little bit green. The green is opposite of magenta, and I don't want magenta in this case. So next we'll go with the whites. You can see the whites, it just highlights in this case. They're not very intensive. And for the painting purpose, I'll just leave it same. I may just add a little bit colder to highlights. Actually, you know what? Red may be too much. Yeah, let's go just pinch of the cold. So this is, I say, it's not very much changes, but it does apply some effect. You can play a little bit more with this if you need it. Another ways, and sometimes I combine both of them, I will go and create the curves. In the curves, we'll go switch to the color blending mode. Let's go call it color. And right here we can do somewhat more cinematic look. It is selecting different channels from drop down like blue, take middle point, and if we bring down, you can see how we change colors. Just bring slightly down here, this and little bit up. Very similar to what is done with the selective colors, but it's only a little bit harder, I think, here, less options. So in same, we go with cyan and a darker, and the red on top. So it's just scenic curve, which is kind of right here. You can see it's just add somewhat similar, but I think the selective colors provide a little bit more effect for me. So I think this is about all what I want to do on this. How I say, it's very simplicity, and usually I add my name. And as signature, it's mostly teeny tiny somewhere hiding in a corner, like right here, hardly seeing. It's just personal preference. I just don't think my signature should take attention from the image, but it's there only for the people who want to find information who did this and contact me. It's only for that reason it's there. It's right here. We're kind of done with our retouching. And one thing, let's look what we have before. This is image we started. Excludes a little bit of the cropping elements, and this is what we end up with. So it's not a very huge retouching compositing project. It's a simple portrait retouching in some painterly style, so it's create like classic painting. Again, thanks for watching this video. If you like it, please subscribe on YouTube, give us thumbs up. Your support is greatly appreciated for this video, and be sure, if you create something in this style, tag my name so I can look, see what are you guys doing. It's kind of interesting to see if your techniques get in use or you have an improvement on the techniques. That will be very interesting to find again. And have fun to creating, and have a great day. Thank you.